Hello, thanks for joining me. Day 4, time to cut the slots in the 2x4 aluminium top tube. Well, in the garage now, or I was when I took these photos earlier, and I was wondering how to cut these rectangular slots. So decided on a tried and trusted method. Drill a few holes, chain drill them, and then use a jigsaw to cut the rectangle. It turned out that the jigsaw, although it had a wide blade, it cut through the aluminium very easily, and it was able to tidy up the jagged edges what the drills had left. It was easy to tidy up that and even nibble away and increase the size of the holes. Cut out the two rectangular holes, one on each side, staggered in position so that the 1x2 aluminium box section would go through the 2x4 at an angle to give me my vertical seat post and my angled top tube. What I hadn't taken into account was a fact that became glaringly obvious. One or both of the holes needed to be slightly larger for this to work, for the smaller box section to pass through the larger box section. How much I didn't know, and it was a case of guessing and trying a bit more, and I ended up with holes which are slightly larger than I'd planned, not on the width but on the length of each hole. But we live and learn. Once the both holes had been cut and shaped, I was eager to see it on a mock-up of the frame, forks and wheels. So I resisted slightly, cut the 1x2 box section into the three parts which represented the seat tube, the vertical, and the left and right swinging arms. Now that took up all of the material that I'd ordered. So fingers crossed it was going to do the job. I'd been referring to my whiteboard drawing throughout the design process. So it worked on the whiteboard, it should work in reality. Back inside, out of the freezing cold, with the dressed pieces, I put a suitable cup hook into a ceiling beam above my worktop, and I positioned the forks under it. The cup hook wasn't taking any great weight, it was just holding the forks at the right angle, that is the 22 degrees. Because if you're going to visualize your composition, it might as well be as accurate as possible. I adjusted the top and bottom yokes, lowering them down towards the wheel. I think I've said before, there's room by sliding the forks through the yokes, there's room for adjustment. And there's also room for adjustment on the seat post idea. So forks, let's call it suspended, but they weren't dangling from the ceiling, they were resting on the worktop and suspended at the right angle. The top tube and the seat post were positioned in the yokes, between the yokes, and suitable blocks underneath the seat post to give it the right height. And I added one G-clamp. It's going to get in the way of the photos, but it was necessary to have things a bit more stable. So the clamp clamps the smaller box section to the walls of the larger box section. The back wheel easily stands by itself, being a wide section balloon tyre. I positioned it so the wheel centres were approximately 24 inches apart as per my original design, and decided to at least block up the left swinging arm and then the right swinging arm so that I could start to visualize the whole composition. I then also added the engine beneath the top tube, blocked that up again. So lots of blocks involved when you're creating something. I think I've said many times, I have to live with the project throughout the evolution process, and it has to be readily available. So when I step into the kitchen to make a cup of tea, and if you know me, that's quite regular. Every time I go in to make a cup of tea or to make my lunch, there's the project on the worktop, and each time I see it slightly differently, and it's evolving in my head. I'm a great believer in letting your brain work out puzzles, not immediate. Some you can solve immediate, but not always. Leave them on the back burner, and if the project's readily visible and available, solutions will develop and evolve. And then it was a case of green screen behind it, lighting, and try and capture it. But I personally don't think the photos do it justice. It's a lovely little race rep coming on fine. The top tube is stuck out the front of the forks until I decide where to drill the hole and cut off the excess. That's the hole for the forks to pivot on. But of course, once you cut it off, it's gone. So I'm not going to dash into it, rush into it. Things like the position of the engine between the wheel and the seat post and the height so that it clears just below the down tube, all have to be taken into account. The engine has mounting holes in the bottom of the crankcase, and that to me suggests a flat plate coming out from the vertical seat post, almost like a shelf you might erect with a cantilever action. So the bike itself is turning into exactly what I'd planned. I hope you'll join me in enjoying this as it's coming on, and join me again soon for more in the evolution of Noah's Race Rep. Thanks for watching.